Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, after a whirlwind romance, his girlfriend left him for another man post-wedding. Despite her pleas for reconciliation after her new relationship failed, he stood firm, refusing to forgive her betrayal. She ended up homeless after he informed her family of her actions, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Through support from loved ones, he moved on, finding strength and closure and refusing to be manipulated again. She learned the hard way the repercussions of her impulsive decisions. Now let's get into the story. My girlfriend and I were dating for a year before moving in together. I proposed before our 2-year anniversary because I was in love. We got along so well, and I never grew tired of her presence. We both worked out together, but there were several times a month when she'd go to the gym without me because of my work. She met another man there, and 4 days after our wedding, she said she was leaving me for him. I didn't even know there was someone else until she told me. I let her go because it was the most dignified thing I could do. A few of my family members supported me through this by talking on the phone or having me over for a while. Word got around at work that I needed a place to stay, so the one guy looking to rent out a room in his house felt kind of pressured to rent. To me, the relationship was pretty awkward. At least I had a place to survive. I was able to save up and find my own place. 1 year later, I hadn't heard anything from my ex, and I was just starting to date again. I found a girl I liked well enough to have a 4th date with, and it was on that date that my ex called me. I hadn't heard her voice in so long. I couldn't resist the temptation to answer the phone. I left for the bathroom quickly and answered in a breathless voice. She was crying, and just like in all the dreams I had about her, she asked me to take her back now. I couldn't believe it was happening just like I expected it would. She said she found out AP was cheating on her, but even before that, she regretted her decision to give up her marriage. It was the most impulsive thing she could have done for a man she met at the gym. I told her I'd call her later, but I wasn't sure if I would. I rejoined my date and felt weird the whole time. I just knew my ex wasn't going to drop out of my life now that she wanted me back. I never told her family or friends what she did to me. It was like the consequences of her breaking my heart never happened. It was up to me now to take her back or not, and I relished the chance to tell her no. I called her back later that night and told her she could take a hike because her betrayal really got to me and I would be a fool to let her do it to me again. She freaked out and said she really needed a place to stay, but I stood my ground until I just hung up on her. Her apologies and sweet voice didn't sway me, and I slept soundly. Then I heard a commotion in my living room at 2:30 a.m. It was my ex climbing through the open window. I thought I was dreaming. I asked her what the hell she thought she was doing, and she laughed a little. She looked at me with puppy dog eyes and said she needed me now more than ever to forgive her so we could start over new. She said she could really show me the life we intended to have when we got married. She admitted she was a foolish woman that didn't deserve me based on her record, but she was asking to be given the chance to repay me for forgiving her now. I burst out laughing in her face. I pointed at her and said she deserved every bit of what she had coming to her. I promised her my life, and she mocked me for it by divorcing me 4 days later. She would never get another chance or help from me, and if I could have it my way, she wouldn't get anyone else's help. She was in disbelief that I was being so cruel to her. She never got to see this side of me. She started sobbing and told me if I didn't let her move back in, she would be homeless with nowhere to go because AP kicked her out. Out of curiosity, I asked why, and she said it was because he conceived a baby with another woman. So he kicked her out to let them move in. I just laughed and told her she'd deserve this, and if she didn't get out of my place and face her consequences, I'd call the police. She proceeded to cry standing or sitting in my front yard until around 7:30 a.m. when neighbors started coming out and going to work. They looked at her funny enough to scare her away without AP. She tried to return to her family in her greatest time of need. It worked for about 1 week, but then I made my round of delayed phone calls. I told each of her family members what ended our marriage so suddenly and updated them on the recent situation she found herself in. I asked them to discourage her from trying to get in contact with me or anyone else until she took some time to find herself. Well, my calls worked like a charm, and her family responded either by refusing to help her or keeping tabs on her. Like a nosy parent. She didn't have financial assistance or trust, which is the least she had coming. She was also forced to experience the heartbreak she was so willing to dish out. Today's second story. In this story, after 15 years of marriage, Opie's wife's prolonged absences lead to a shocking discovery. She's having an affair with a mutual acquaintance. Confrontation ensues at an amusement park, resulting in both couples splitting. Despite efforts to reconcile, his ex-wife faces the consequences of her actions. He moves on, finding solace in a new relationship, while his ex-wife's life takes a downward spiral. Now let's get into the story. My wife and I were married for 15 years. We had one child, a daughter who was 12 at the time of this story. It was her birthday, so we ambitiously decided to host an amusement park outing for several children. The only other volunteers to help us monitor these kids were the parents of one of our daughter's friends. They were married for a long time too, although I'm not sure how long. My wife used to party in her college days. By the time I met her, she was already divorced from a short marriage. When we met, she fell head over heels for me and said she knew I was the one she was waiting for. It was easy for her to commit herself to me, and after 3 years of marriage, we conceived. She was a stay-at-home mom, working a little from home, but mostly focusing on our daughter. She brought her to the gardening club she got involved with, where they both made friends around the area. My wife also went to the grocery store and the library, but that's not too much of a surprise. What was surprising was how long she'd spend there. Since around the time our daughter turned 11, my wife started spending exceptionally long amounts of time at the store or library. Even when I was home with our daughter waiting, she didn't ask us to go with her, but we didn't really want to either. I didn't expect her to do anything else at that time, and I didn't expect her to take so long on purpose. Still, even with this happening, we had date nights, alone time, and family nights. My wife would put down her phone to spend time with us, and even though I saw it lighting up, I always thought it was friends she made from the gardening club or other moms of kids our daughter played with. One day, my wife said she made a play date for our daughter at the park. I asked her if I could come. She tried to ask if I had something work-related to take care of, and I laughed awkwardly and said no. She should have known I didn't. She texted a little before we left, and when we got to the park, another couple was there. They were the parents of our daughter's friend. Introductions were fine and friendly. I was under the impression that my wife met this woman somewhere and arranged the play date. This woman was under the impression that her husband met me somewhere and arranged the play date with her kids. These impressions were wrong, but we wouldn't find out until much later. My wife seemed to speak more directly to AP, not the woman I thought she was friends with. Then I thought I was just being obsessive because any question in the couple's direction is for either of them to answer. But this guy seemed so eager to be the one to answer my wife. I just tried to focus on playing with the kids, distracting myself from worrying about something that amounted to nothing. My wife continued spending long amounts of time at the grocery store or library wherever she said she was going. Sometimes my daughter and I got home from work and school to find she was out doing something. We wait for her to return, but I grew sick of it. When she got home one night, I confronted her. I told her there was no reason being out anywhere should take her so long, and she was missing out on time with us. We needed her home. My wife wasn't receptive to this like I thought she'd be. She was defensive and upset. She said she needed this time away because for the past 12 years, she'd been stuck in the same house without any adventure. I was shocked. I named all the adventures or things we did, be it alone or with our child. My wife seemed to snap back to normal after my rant. She asked me for more date nights. But I knew we went out often enough anymore, and our daughter might think we didn't want to live with her at the amusement park for our daughter's birthday. We kept the group at first, but eventually the kids wanted to go on different rides to better appease the crowd. We split into 2 groups to wait in line at rides adjacent to each other, with AP and his wife in one line and me and my wife in another. After getting pretty close, my wife said she had to go. I watched her until she was far away enough to measure half the size of my pinky. She went into the family bathroom, which I thought was odd. Then I saw AP jump inside the bathroom too. I screamed and yelled, but it only made the people around me jump. I had no choice but to stand in line with the kids until they got on the ride. Then I raced over to bang on the door. My wife's voice panicked when she said it was occupied. I told her it was me and demanded she let me in, but she just repeated over and over that she couldn't open the door. The ride was stopping, so I raced back to gather the kids. I couldn't believe the situation I was in, keeping watch over a bunch of kids for my daughter's birthday while my wife snuck into the bathroom with another man. What was she thinking? I got the kids to walk with me over to the bathrooms. But before we got close, my wife came out and AP dodged to hide behind a tree. My wife was pale as a ghost and sweating. I think she knew she was caught. AP rejoined his wife moments before our group met up with them. I told my wife, AP and his wife, that I just saw them go into the family bathroom together. AP's wife freaked out. She asked him if it was true, and he didn't know what to say, so she started hitting him. My wife tried to stop it for the children's sake, but that was a terrible idea because she started hitting her instead. I wanted so badly to jump in, but I knew I had to be the bigger person. I got security to help us get back to our cars. Once all the disappointed children were back to their respective homes, I ordered my wife to let me see her phone. I looked through it and found the dating app with AP's messages. Funny how neither of them mentioned being married until after they met up a few times to cheat on their spouses. I tried to use her phone to send proof to AP's wife, but she grabbed it back. I told her to pack and get out. She broke down and even handed me back her phone. She said she would do absolutely anything for a second chance to remain my wife. I told her no, but to get the chance to send AP's wife the proof, ensuring neither of us would have to give our spouses anything in the divorce. While my wife cried, our daughter came in to ask what was going on. She broke down even more and looked at me. I didn't say a word. Of course, she couldn't bring herself to tell her what she did it, but she did say she messed up badly and needed to move out of the house. They were both crying, and it was hard for me to watch. I just kept assuring myself this was what I had to do, and if I didn't, our daughter would grow up to think it was okay to cheat on the man she loved. My ex did get to see our daughter frequently, and I'm glad for that, so it might be less traumatic for her. But it was still hard, and it was still all my ex's fault. She and AP got a place together, and the divorces were made final. Nearly 2 years later, my ex called me. I thought it would be about the next visit she had with our daughter, but it wasn't that. She was sobbing just like she did on the day I discovered her affair. She told me AP cheated on her, and she was very newly pregnant. I didn't know what advice to give her, but when she asked me if she could move back in, that was a big fat no. She cried and made it clear that her life would be miserable. I wished her luck, so she stayed in AP's house. Even though he cheated on her whenever he wanted, he doesn't help her with the baby at all, from what she tells me, and she hates her life. She didn't know how cruel and pointless life could be until she cheated on me and lost everything she took for granted. Since the divorce, I've been healing. I started dating, and we've been together for a year, but she hasn't moved in. I need to make sure she's worth marrying first, and if she isn't, I'll start over again.